Professor Shaw, you said Congress had set high standards in Rule 23 for certifying class actions. Why would we have set high standards for class actions?
So I don't think I said that, sir. Just that the Rule 23 standards are relatively demanding, that the court has ratcheted up the difficulty of satisfying them.
So, but why would we set demanding standards for class actions?
I'm not sure. The Rules Committee produces the rules, so I'm not quite sure.
But Congress adopts them.
Yes. So, I mean, you tell me, sir.
Well, there's a reason we have high standards for class actions, because it should be difficult to certify a nationwide class, and what we are seeing is single judges ignoring the federal rules of civil procedure, ignoring the rules Congress has set out for class certification, and saying, I'm just going to issue an injunction to the whole damn country, and it doesn't matter if it meets even the bare thresholds of the federal rules. Senator Kennedy.
I have little respect for your opinion, because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say, because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but.
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You're embarrassed that you made that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer of the court.
It doesn't sound like something that I would say.
You know what I'm embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
On your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Hawley.
You said in response to a nationwide injunction on the Biden FDA's mifepristone rules, and I quote, "This injunction's a travesty for principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law."
I think I've been consistent today. That was issued by Judge Kaczmarek in a single judge division. They're a problem. Those are a problem.
With him personally? Wait,
no.
So your testimony is if it's issued by Judge Kaczmarek, it's bad?
No, sir.
It's personal?
That is not my testimony.
Is the problem with the injunction? You were criticizing the universal injunction here.
Issued by a judge in a single judge division. I've been very clear today that those are a problem.
By a Republican judge in a Republican division, then it's bad.
No, Senator.
Otherwise, it's fine.
No, Senator. I think that single judge divisions
What is the
are a problem.
principal difference? I'm looking for a principle. I understand you hate the president. I understand you love all of these rulings against him. You and I both know that's not a principle. You're a lawyer. What's the principle that divides when issuing a nationwide injunction is okay when it's not? When the Biden administration was subject to nationwide injunctions, you said that they were travesties for the principle of democracy. You didn't say the referral to Judge Kaczmarek was a travesty. You said his injunction was a travesty for principles of democracy.
Yeah. So,
in other words, the translation is just you didn't like the outcome. Is that right?
No, Senator. Look, we're talking about, I don't think Article 3 precludes this form of relief. So we are talking about prudential considerations.
Prudential meaning political?
No,
Then
no.
give me, so far I have yet to hear it. You've been questioned by multiple senators. I have yet to hear a principle other than the fact when you like the ruling, you think it's great to apply it nationally, including non-parties. When you don't like the ruling, it is a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law.
Look, Senator, I'll say, I think I am self-aware enough to know that my view of the underlying legal question, I am sure colors my perception of the remedy. I think that we should all acknowledge that. And yet I do think
And
that
why shouldn't we stop nationwide injunctions for everybody?
I think there
That's
is-
what we're talking about today.
because I'm not willing to leave without relief non-parties who
No,
are
you're not
injured.
willing to leave without the ability to bind President Trump.
No, I
right?
think that...
I mean, and when it's
I believe-
Biden, it's okay.
No.
When it's Biden, oh, it's a travesty. When it's Trump in office, it's, oh, no holds barred, whatever it takes, right?
I
It's
believe
just
in
like
a powerful
that book that,
no.
what was it that President Biden's staff said? We've got to do undemocratic, unconstitutional things to save democracy. Why is
I
the same
believe
thing?
in a powerful president. I do believe in presidential power, but power and constraint are not at fundamental odds.
What
Constraint
is the
legitimates
principle?
power.
What is the principle? The legal principle. You've referenced prudence. You've referenced the judges you don't like. What's the principle of when an injunction binding non-parties, which was never done in this country before the 1960s? And let's see the chart, the Trump chart, which was done really only once Trump came into office for the first time. You don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit
A
strange?
very
You think this is
plausible
good for the rule of
explanation,
law?
Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this
concede that
was
as a
never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no, actually.
It's Republican appointees as well, Senator.
don't like
And the 1960s is where some scholars begin, sort of locate the beginning
Can you
of this, but
identify one
others...
before then?
Mila Sahoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first, and others in the
okay, so we
20s.
endured, the Republic endured for 150 years before there was a nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot less until 100 years ago. So there's many things that have changed in the last 100 or the last 50 years.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for.
That is
How
not-
can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are
Is
no
that blind?
meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system
That's
of law.
not what
and I
you
am-
thought when Joe Biden. That is not what you thought when
I
Joe
think
Biden was
every
president.
president
You
is
said that is
constrained
not what
and
you
must be.
said. You said it was
Absolutely.
a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law. You also said
Supreme
when Joe
Court,
Biden
Senator,
was
agreed-
president. Wait a minute.
agreed
Wait a
9-0
minute.
with me on
you
that
also
case,
said
to
when
be
Joe
clear.
Biden was president, you said the idea that anyone would foreign shop to get a judge who would issue a nationwide injunction was just politicians, just judges looking like politicians in robes. Again, it threatened the underlying legal system. People just trying to get the result they wanted. It was a travesty for the rule of law. But you're fine with all of that if it's getting the result that you want.
Sir, the Supreme Court agreed unanimously with me in that case, right? There was no standing. The case should never have been allowed to proceed.
Wait,
and the
what
combination of
case?
parties without standing and the single judge division.
No. We're talking. No, they did not. They did not issue a ruling on the nationwide injunction. You criticized the injunction nationwide. Listen,
Issued in a case
we can
where
go
no
round
one
and
had
round on this.
standing.
Here's the thing. We've now gone 6 minutes, and Senator Kennedy had you for 6 or 7. You couldn't identify a single principled basis. We all know the truth here, which is it's not just you. It's most of my colleagues over here on this side of the aisle, who I respect a great deal, and they were raising very principled objections to the nationwide injunction just 6 months ago, maybe 9 now. And you're probably right. My point is that all that's changed in 9 months is the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I realize that my colleagues on this side of the aisle very much dislike that individual, and I realize that you think that the rulings that he has lost are fundamentally sound. We might grant all of that. I disagree with all of that, but we can put that to one side. The question we're talking about here is, should judges, single judges, district court judges, be able to bind non-parties who are not in front of them? And you used to say no, now you say yes. Let's be consistent. I would just suggest to you our system of government cannot survive if it's going to be politics all the way down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I briefly respond?
Sure.
I mean, you invoked democracy a couple of times there, Senator. Judges
I
are
quoted
part.
you.
Judges
I quoted
are
you,
part
Professor.
of our system of democracy. Democracy is not as simple as majority rule. Judges have always served something of a
You would have it be as simple
counter-majoritarian
as
function.
majority rule. When you get the majority you like, you're for the nationwide injunction. When you don't, you're not.
Since President Trump returned to office in January, there have been over 40 universal injunctions issued against the federal government. That's in 4 months. 35 of those 40 came from the same 5 judicial districts. Let's put this into context. In the first 150 years of the Republic, 0 nationwide injunctions were issued. 0. That's for 150 years. In the entirety of the 20th century, 27 nationwide injunctions were issued. That's over 100 years. Under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Biden combined, 32 nationwide injunctions. Under President Trump's first term, 4 years, 64 nationwide injunctions, and now in just 4 months, we're already over 40. In 4 months, the Trump administration has seen more nationwide injunctions than the entirety of the 20th century, and more nationwide injunctions than Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden combined. This is not normal. This is not justice. This is an orchestrated campaign of judicial obstruction. Joe Biden, when he was president, nominated to the bench radicals. I have said, only slightly tongue-in-cheek, that Joe Biden did something I used to think was impossible. He made me miss Barack Obama. But by comparison, the Biden judicial nominees were far more extreme and radical than they were under Obama. They sought out radicals who would implement policymaking from the bench, and they are doing precisely that. That is not democracy, and that is not our Constitution. This hearing is to highlight the effects of this judicial tyranny, of single judges deciding they know better when it comes to policy than do the voters of America. We need to defend democracy.